Why did the shows that I was looking forward to the most this year almost all disappoint me? Sawadee Tukon, je m'appelle Axel and I'm a French woman living in Bangkok, Thailand. This video was not planned whatsoever and was written in practically a fever dream after only getting 4 hours of sleep, but it needed to be said. I did not watch Homeschool live as it aired because it felt like one of these shows that you have to be ready for. I love serious shows, yet oftentimes I find myself kind of dreading getting into a long, serious and intense show and would rather watch a silly comedy or a romance instead. So it took me a little while to get to watching Homeschool while I was stuck in bed with an ear infection, yet I had absolutely no doubt that this show would be amazing. After all, it was made by a director I like, with a cast I really like, with a seemingly original and innovative plot that got the budget it deserved. Unlike a show like Not Me, which should have gotten that budget but absolutely didn't. And yes, I will bring Not Me in every single video because that show deserved so much better. And the fact that a mediocre show like Homeschool got the budget and the marketing it deserved while Not Me didn't infuriates me to the highest point. But anyways, beyond the great prospect that this series had, it was also very popular and secured a really good 8.3 rating out of 10 on my drama lists. I genuinely expected this show to become my new The Gifted, a powerful ensemble cast show with amazing writing, and instead, Homeschool is kinda dumb. Spoilers for the whole show, you've been warned. Let's start with what I liked. The acting is mostly really good from everyone. Of course, you know that when they put Ganatapan in a show, he's gonna carry it on his little, tiny, skinny legend shoulders. But honestly, that was kind of a bland role for him after Poon from The Gifted and especially Black and White from Not Me. Like, of course you cannot top that, but because the writing of the show is so dreadful, even Gun looked kinda pathetic at times. Film Rachanan is one of the best Thai actresses, so she ate that, despite the fact that Maki is a super one-dimensional bland character. But apart from that, everyone on the cast did a good or okay job in terms of acting, so yay for that! Next, I really loved Pennung as a character. I always love representation, so I really enjoyed having a special needs kid be such a central and lovable part of the show. And honestly, he's kind of the only character I really cared about. Even though I absolutely hated the fact that he was of course used as the punching bag for most of the show, because what else would a special needs character be there for? The other notable character I liked was, of course, White, who is badass and kind of a drama queen, so very fun to follow, even though I feel like she was kind of built up as a mean girl in the first episode, and then that was dropped immediately for no reason, making her a good main character instead of leaning into her badness a little bit more, which honestly would have made her a more convincing and well-rounded character instead of just making her kind of bland like all the other main characters of the show. And yes, as you'll have noticed, all the compliments I've given the show so far have been counterbalanced by flaws. Because that's how hard it is fully complimenting this show. The really striking good thing about this show is truly its aesthetic. The place where Homeschooled is filmed stands out a lot from every other place in Thai dramas, mostly because the whole show has this very European board school aesthetic, which is not very common, obviously. But honestly, sometimes I was wondering, like, why they did not lean more into a Thai board school aesthetic, because if there's one thing that Thai dramas excel at and cannot be beaten at, is obviously showing Thai culture, Thai architecture, you know. Sometimes I feel kind of bad that Thai shows feel the need to often lean into more European aesthetics to show luxury and coolness, when I think, in my very biased opinion, because I love Thai culture, think that Thai architecture and buildings are just as luxurious looking and cool, you know? But anyways, I still really like the aesthetic. The visuals of this show are really good, and in my opinion, the main pull of why you'd want to watch this show. It's kind of all aesthetic and no substance. So let's get into what is truly wrong with homeschool. Let's get the small things out of the way first. While the aesthetic of the show itself is good, the actual filming and camera shots are not. It took me a little while to figure out why this seemingly very serious show was honestly off-putting. And then I realized it's because most of the shots are wide shots to accommodate the large cast, except, and follow me there, it makes them look like Sims. I know, it's random as hell, but genuinely all the show is the characters running around, which is mainly the fault of the writing, and we are getting there, but the camera shots genuinely make it worse. Let's take one of the most important scenes of the show as an example. When Maki is reunited with Ron, her brother. These bitches have been separated for 6 years. Maki risks everything to come to homeschool to see him. And this is how they meet again?
Maki.
They just run into each other, and I know it's once again mostly a writing issue, but the initial camera shot makes it look so rushed and unplanned and bland. Well, the whole show is like that. Some shots are better and even good, but once again, for a show that has its aesthetic down to a T, that got an enormous budget and was filming forever, I was expecting way better. And the pace and length of the show are genuinely dreadful. I'm sorry. If it was an actually well-written show, this comment would not happen. But in this case, I have to say that I was both bored and so frustrated that I wanted to fast forward every scene. How come a show with so many characters and such a seemingly intense plot can give me this kind of feeling? I've watched way worse rated shows that are way more low budget and not that good either, yet they were miles less fast forward worthy than Homeschool. Now let's get into the writing and be ready because I have so much to say. One of the earlier problems I noticed quite early into Homeschool is the rushed and very surface level character development. Each character's backstory is explained in one sentence and given one flashback, if they're lucky. Hugo is the biggest failure of the show because we don't even see his story. We don't get to see his brother who died, the bond that united them, and the effect his death had on Hugo. This betrays the number one rule of screenwriting. Show, don't tell. Even though the other characters get more developed flashbacks, it's still the same. It's so surface level, it hurts. The whole first part of the show, I was just waiting for the characters to have a moment where they become truly good characters, fully fleshed out and relatable. White has by far the most compelling, heart-wrenching story, yet is also barely addressed and we never see her resolve her issue with her aunt. Another great example of how bad the writing is would be the fight between Meg and Mark. I've loved AJ and AJ especially for years, and I was so happy to see from the beginning of the show that some tension was building between their characters. I think having brothers fight and resent each other is not only highly realistic, but a great source of tension and release for the show in the form of a future reconciliation. Also, it was nice to see the twins' characters developed since they were barely existent or needed in The Gifted, for example. But then we finally got to see why these two supposedly hate each other.
ก็พ่อรักแม่ไงแต่เกลียดกูส่วนแม่นี่ก็รักกูเกลียดแม่ไง
Bruh, it's the way it comes off as so cringy when they make them repeat that fact multiple times on the show. Because if you know that your parents are actively trying to league you against one another, why would you participate in it? But that's not even my biggest gripe with that plot. It's that after Morg beats up Meg for a competition, they just magically become better. There is no release to the tension that was built up over the course of multiple episodes. No exploration of the characters and their feelings and motivations. Nothing. Everything stays so surface level, it hurts. And the show feels empty and pointless because of it. Maki is bland, but Tibet and Nai are even blander. I actually really like Nani's performance in this. That was the first role I've ever seen him in, and I think he possesses a really good charisma. But Tibet is like empty. There's nothing to this character. And you're gonna tell me he was chosen by the professors to help in Project R? Just because his mom died? Just because his dad worked for homeschool before? Yeah, makes sense, because his personality would not have helped at all. Also, was this plot even explored at all? It was not. It was literally not. They were just like, we want you for Project R, and then we never heard of it again. Nai is a bit more fun at times, but he also has basically no personality, especially since he feels like the only one whose parent doesn't actually hate him and didn't really want to fully ditch him, just send him to homeschool to get better. Of course, that is completely discarded in the second half of the show, so that Nai can try to kill his dad during Project R, but it all falls flat. This also reminds me of another super important scene of the show that completely falls flat. The moment that the kids go home to realize that their parents don't want them anymore is supposed to be one of the top moments of the show. We're supposed to feel the heartbreak and pain of these kids. But of course, it all stays surface level once again. We just get a collage of short scenes and we're supposed to be good with that. But the only impactful scenes are the Mac and Mork one and the White one. And they're still not really great scenes either. Nai's scene is the most ridiculous though, because we don't even get to hear what his dad told him. As for Hugo and Jinjai, it makes absolutely zero sense for them to return to homeschool just because Jinjai's dad kept her from taking her bag outside and slapped her. Huh? You can still run away, you absolute buffoons. In fact, even though all the kids are rejected by their parents, why would you go back to a school that has been torturing you for weeks? This whole storyline was so badly done and truly cemented the fact that this show was not good to me. The other characters of the show like Meg, Mork, Fuji playing Biu and Yin are okay and have interesting, distinct personalities. Though they were so underdeveloped, they might as well not have been there. Penung was the only non-main character who stood out and got some actual screen time because he is so different from the other characters. And it is clear that the screenwriters love him, which they are right, he is the best. Hugo and Jinjai as characters are honestly some of the most interesting, I have to say, but they're still badly written. I think another one of the show's failures is that despite being an ensemble cast, there are 4 main characters, 2 mean ones, and then 7 random NPCs basically. I'm gonna have to bust down the Gifted comparisons since this show obviously placed itself to be in the same vein as it. Being an ensemble cast show with an eerie vibe that takes place in a school and even contains some of the same casts. Though Peng is clearly the main character of The Gifted and the whole show follows him, we get long and developed storylines for each of the characters of the show. Either Homeschool should have followed a 1 episode equals 1 character story like The Gifted did, or at least they should have simply developed all the characters way more. I cannot believe most of the show is spent with random characters but never the main 4 going missing. And we never get their perspective on anything. Penung goes missing very early into the show, yet we don't get any insight into how that affected him and shaped the rest of his time on the show, especially since he is a kid with special needs who was previously emotionally abused by his father. So we could assume that being locked up for so long would have long-lasting effects on him. But nope, he's back to normal after 1 day. Same for Meg and Mark. We barely see Hugo, Jinjai, Fuji, Biu, and Yin in the last few episodes, and I know it's because they're being brainwashed for Project R, but once again, we see none of that except for like a 3-second shot, which simply does not work. Now though, the biggest failure of homeschool is the masters. First of all, I will never be able to hear the word master the same way ever again. I heard it so much throughout the show, even though it's such an unnatural word to have in Thai. But apart from that, every single master was absolutely terrible. The one I liked the most was, of course, Papeng, who not only had the cutest hair and got to fight with gun, which brought back my not me feels, but he was the only sort of consistent character. Though again, none of the masters except for Master Amin get a backstory, so we just know in one sentence that he was a national athlete. What's really confusing about his character too is that it's unclear whether or not he was under hypnosis or if he's just an asshole who shoots Maki for no reason. Master Amin and the headmaster are somewhat okay. They have a good on-screen presence, but did not leave me with any sort of long-lasting impression. Except that Master Amin's relationship with Run gave me pedo vibes, and the class the headmaster holds with some of the girl students where they basically discuss feminism was one of the most performative and eye-rolling cringy moments of the show. That one master who's basically a servant for homeschool was alright, I guess, and his acting was good, but he didn't leave any lasting impression on me. So much so that I almost forgot to write this section about him. Then we have Master Dilak, who is incredibly annoying with her random singing, which I know was on purpose, but does not look creepy whatsoever and just got on my nerves. Her storyline of trying to run away and having mental health issues was also extremely confusing and badly done. Master Prepon, though, was certainly the most confusing character, because it was clear that they were trying to build her as a sympathetic character from the beginning, but at the same time, she has the creepiest smile and seems to enjoy seeing the students suffer, which was so weird, even if she was just acting. Her death was also dumb as fuck and did not hold the emotional depth that the writers wanted it to, despite Gun acting his ass off in that scene. But lastly, of course, we have to talk about Master Prasad. I know this actor from 10 Years Ticket, in which he was pretty good, but I hated this character in casting. First of all, if we were supposed to be surprised that he was shady as if it were a plot twist, that was a fail. He looked so suspicious since day one, and the writing of his character was so cringy like Master Dilak. Him laughing randomly at every sentence and clearing his throat in the most disgusting way came off as so over the top and ridiculous. And while it served to confuse us about his goal as a character, it did not work at all for me. Moreover, the reveal that he was controlling Master Amin through hypnosis was badly done, and I simply never felt afraid of his character. He looked more pathetic than anything. And I think it's mostly due to the writing, but the casting was also not right in my opinion. He's honestly the worst villain I've seen in a while. His goal and his motivation as a character are also so underdeveloped. It's just explained in one sentence that he was abused by his dad, and that's why he wants to take revenge on neglectful, revengeful parents. But it does not hold the way that it should have, because again, the writing is so rushed and so surface level. In the end, what the writing achieves is that all the characters look stupid as hell. For example, when Hugo and Jinjai come back from being brainwashed the first time, the other kids notice that something is off. And then a few scenes later, Maki is like,
เราก็รู้สึกว่าฮิวโก้กับจินใจทำตัวแปลกๆหลังจากถูกปล่อยตัวออกมา
You don't say, bitch! This show honestly feels like it was written by kids playing with Barbies, if it makes sense. The logic is so basic and flawed, and the characters realize certain things only when the plot calls for it. And the worst thing is that this show takes itself extremely seriously, Yet the writing is the most unserious thing ever, so there is a cognitive dissonance. The writing also makes the characters and their acting so overdramatic, which is really sad because once again, most of the cast is really talented. Yet the writing even managed to make their acting look weird and over the top sometimes, which was really disappointing. The director of Homeschool did disappoint me earlier this year with 10 Years Ticket because it wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. Yet at least in that show, the acting was incredible and felt just right. Here, that wasn't even the case. But lastly, of course, we have the ending. As said before, the reveal that Master Prasad is the bad guy fell incredibly flat because he looked shady since day one. And also it got rid of all of Master Amin's responsibility in the torture of his students, which didn't feel rewarding from a viewer's point of view. Also, certain masters becoming good while others stayed bad felt super random once again. And I just felt like this show didn't know what it wanted, which the ending proved. What kills me the most is that if Master Amin had never psychologically and physically tortured the students until 6 years ago when he started being hypnotized by Master Prasad, then how come no other master realized he was wrong? On the show, the master voiced their concerns, but they just say something is not right and continue to obey his order for 6 more years. Why did it take them 6 years to do something? Why were they okay with Ron being locked up for 6 years?
Editing Excel here, I just wanted to add a little thing, which is that like the screenwriters could argue that it's because Gen 6 of homeschool students is special, which is said on the show, which is fucking stupid as fucking hell. Because how are they fucking special? How is this particular generation of homeschool students better or more special than the others? Babe, they are also fucking stupid. Like literally every character on this show shares one single brain cell. So I'm sorry, but if the masters waited until like the homeschool students were special enough to do something, then it makes even less sense. Like it just, none of this show makes sense. None of it.
Also, I'm sorry, but hypnosis being like the scary secret weapon of like everyone on this show was dumb as fuck because once again, like everything else in this show, it wasn't explored nearly enough. There is a way that hypnosis can be done super well on screen and be genuinely terrifying. In fact, the scene where Ron hypnotizes Master Poban is well done, though way too short to hold on to the coolness of it. But apart from that, it just felt like hypnosis was used to show the power of these masters that all look actually really pathetic and not powerful at all, which is another failure of the show. Of course, through Project R, the goal of the show is to show that revenge is not worth it. They keep repeating the sentence,
การใช้ความรุนแรงตอบโต้ความรุนแรงมันมีแต่จะทำให้คุณเสียน้ำตา
which of course is not a bad message and is in line with Thai Buddhist culture. But then the show doesn't feel satisfying at all. It's like there's no goal to it, no meaning, no end in sight. I think there's other ways than violence to take revenge on others, and it would have been amazing to see them used. Though in any case, it would have never felt completely satisfying since the student stories with their parents are never developed enough. I also want to say that the forced message by the masters of homeschool that everyone needs to love each other, everyone needs to be friends, is also a failure in this case because in the end, not everyone on the show is friends. Not everyone loves each other. In fact, I would say most of the friendships and love is completely manufactured. And the kids don't really care or love for each other. They're just forced in a traumatic, torturous situation together.
Editing Excel again, I also wanted to say that once again, The whole time they say, you need to love each other, you need to be friends, blah, blah, blah. But the first half of the show is spent giving them challenges and tortures that league them against one another. And this gives no explanation. Like, why did this happen? Why would you say something that is the exact opposite of the exercises, and which is, again, torture, that you're giving those students? In the beginning of the show, it contributes to homeschool feeling like hell, right? It intrigues us as viewers. It makes us want to keep watching, but there's no answer to it. They said one thing and did another, and we're supposed to be okay with that, and we never get an explanation.
But honestly, the whole time that Master Prasad has them all in hostage with only one gun, it felt so ridiculous. You tell me one of the masters couldn't have risked their life for the kids while another gets them out of there? Once again, the stakes are so low, yet are meant to feel so high that it feels ridiculous. Let's not even talk about how ridiculous and unsatisfying Master Prasad getting arrested is. But what baffles me the most is that the kids stay in homeschool in the end? And that's supposed to be a happy ending? Them coming back once in the middle of the show was ridiculous enough. But they do it the second time and they have Ron take over homeschool as if he wasn't kept locked inside of it for 6 years of his life and tortured. I think the idea that homeschool is good, which is pushed so hard throughout the whole show, while we have only seen it being utterly terrible, is the biggest failure of the show. You cannot conclude that Master Amin's initial vision was good, when we have seen these kids be tortured, as if getting abandoned by their parents wasn't enough. The message this show wants to convey absolutely does not work. And that makes the whole show utterly useless. They want to show that friendship and love, prevails, but the friendship and love on the show is very manufactured, very fake. They want to show that revenge is not the solution. But in that case, it would have been, especially, for example, in the case of White, whose Aunt literally stole her property and sold it off. She needs to take revenge by getting her fucking money or her fucking property back. And lastly, the fact that homeschool is good is a complete oxymoron when we have seen it be simply terrible from beginning to end, including and especially all the masters there. They completely missed the mark with this show. To conclude, this was one of the most frustrating shows I've seen in a while. And honestly, I cannot believe so many people believe it to be good. How does it have 8.3 on my drama list? Sometimes I wonder if we've watched the same show. I think what this show excels at is looking like it's good, yet having none of the substance. I gotta say, I'm especially disappointed in the director, because not only do I always want to encourage female directors, but also because she created one of my favorite Thai dramas of all time, Happy Birthday, which is a show that is practically flawless, extremely emotionally draining though, with impeccable acting and incredible characters. Honestly, Happy Birthday and Homeschool feel like they're not even from the same planet. And it made me falsely believe that all of her shows would be like this. But then after 10 Years Ticket earlier this year was a medium disappointment, I got to the biggest disappointment of all, which is Homeschool. But as I've learned with Only Friends disappointing me in my favorite Thai director, Jojo Tishakorn, whom I've made a whole video about because that's how much I respect and love him as a director, is that in Thai dramas, having a previous great show never means that every show from that director will also be great. The quality just is all over the place. I have an Only Friends video coming up very soon, by the way. Stay tuned for it. But anyways, even though this video was quite negative and complaining, which I don't really love, I still hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time and have a great day.